behind me, as you can see, County Executive Mark Elrich, City of Gaithersburg Police Chief Mark Soroka, Montgomery County Assistant Chief Nick Augustine. I'm going to only provide information that is updates and different than yours today. After we get through the information update, if there's questions or want information on the events yours today, we'll provide that. This building is constructed in 1967. I'll provide these facts because it will come into play as we talk about our steps going forward. It is concrete, pre-stressed floor material, what you would see inside of a parking garage. These are large, heavy concrete slabs that have now created the pancake and V collapse structures inside this building. EMS, patient care. We originally reported 12 total patients. That number has been revised as the day went on yesterday. We saw 2 additional residents / patients on site. So the number is 14 patients addressed by fire and EMS on site. Still remains 10 transported to the local hospitals. 2 of those were critical, 8 were mild and moderate. 4 of that 8 were children, including as young as 4-month-old. Update for this morning, only 1 of the 10 remains hospitalized. The other 9 have been discharged. That 1 remaining resident condition has been upgraded and they are in a stable condition.
Is that male or a female?
That information is a male. Pertaining to the shelter, as of last night, and I will advise that that number is increasing this morning, as of last night, 12 families, which accounted for 34 people, had checked in with the sheltering task force. 12 families, accounting for 34 people, had checked in with the sheltering task force at Boer Park. Overnight, there was only a cumulative 3 families and 9 people seeking assistance. They were supported by our sheltering task force and all of our partners there and provided accommodations. Boer Park, as a reception center, a center for health and human services support and the county support, being located in one area, opened again at 9 a.m. Plans to remain open until 4 p.m. today and can extend if need be. And again, we've already heard today more residents, more families are checking in with Boer Park today, so that number is going up. Accountability of the residents. There are no changes from yesterday, but I want to repeat the information from yesterday. 1 unit in 826 remains unaccounted for. The other 5 units in 826 all have been accounted for. I am not able to provide you information as to what unit, which apartment remains unaccounted for in 826. Overnight, operations shifted significantly on scene, as you saw. We had an overwatch function from fire rescue here because the building was still smoldering. There were still pockets of fire in the building. That resolved itself overnight. As you see, very little to no smoke production on the scene behind me. Fire rescue remains here to monitor that with fire crews. Also overnight, the crane was set up, the heavy equipment was brought in, the fence was installed, lighting was installed, and overnight security remains. Plans for today. I talked about the construction of this building. That plays significantly into the stability issues of this building. We are focusing our operations on mechanical, equipment-based removal We have taken down several pillars on the back of the building that were freestanding masonry that was very unstable. And we are now beginning the process of picking off items from the top levels and removing that equipment. Removing that debris by equipment. We do not plan to put interior shoring or personnel inside the building based upon this building stability. Again, this will be a multi-day event. Repeating what I said last night about canines, live fine canines and human remains dogs worked in limited areas yesterday with no alerts, no indications yesterday. Those dogs are back today. They are working areas that safety permits them to work in, and I have no updates yet today on the canine activities. On the investigation, this remains a joint operation with Montgomery County Fire Rescue, Montgomery County Police, Gaithersburg City Police, and specialists from our federal partners. Many investigative processes are underway. There's no additional information or facts that I have or our team has with us here that we can provide at this time. Transition now to County Executive Elrich for his information.
What I can tell you about the residents is that we have, as we did in the previous explosions, our nonprofits have stepped up and they're working to provide housing for all the residents. I don't have an up-to-date number on how many people have been housed so far, but we know between the shelter and people getting assistance, we will continue to take care of the residents who are in the building. MHP, Montgomery Housing Partnership, is carrying out a similar effort to raise money because people, clearly lost everything. And so we're going to need to help them put their lives back together. So MHP is working to do that. And, we'll continue to provide support to the residents. I believe there's going to be a community meeting just so people can understand what we know and calm concerns that people might have about what happened here. For what I know, nobody's determined cause at this point. So we will get to that as they unravel the building. That's the major stuff that I have on this. I think the technical things all come from the fire department. We feel pretty good about what we feel we're doing for the residents who are in there, and we will continue that effort. We're not going to leave anybody uncared for. Okay.
Ask questions.
Let me hit 2 points. Questions for the executive?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary because we've had multiple, and we don't know the cause on this one yet, but we've had a number of gas explosions. How concerned are you about that? Is there anything you can do to try and ensure that the gas that is going into people's homes and so forth is safe?
Well, so I can only answer about the two that we know. So the one is the failure of a regulator. That's been taken care of by state legislation. How fast Washington Gas implements it, I know, has been a bone of contention for some people. But the regulator issue that caused the original explosion off of near Flower Avenue, that's one issue. The second issue was a work person who cut a gas pipe. There's no equipment failure here. There's nothing we could have done except for what we've asked WSSC to do, and they are working through the regulatory process, which is not our regulatory process, because I know what I would have done, and I would have done it right away. But whatever they go through the state, they are going through a process of updating regulations. I wanted the pipes marked. I thought that was important, and those pipes in that building were not adequately marked because they were too old. This, we don't know the cause of this. We have no reason to believe it's a regulator. But when we find out the cause, we see if there's a thread that links all three incidents. But right now, you've got two incidents with no thread between them. I don't know whether this third one will produce a thread.
In addition to what the executive outlined about prior events, so Littonsville is one, Arliss was the other one that he was referring to. Also in the county, we had a propane event in Laytonsville. A little bit period of time before that, that was not natural gas. That was not related to regulators neither. That was a leaking, tank system in that apartment, in that housing building. Additionally, when you look back at our other natural gas, explosions over time, some have been intentional. Ashley Drive as an event. Some have been completely accidental. Ashley Drive as another event in history. So when we look at each of these, and I'm going with my 30 years of experience here on different events, each of them is almost uniquely and separately, how it developed than any of the other ones in that arena. So the most important thing, as the executive outlined, is when we know there's a way to make the distribution of the gas safer, when we know there's a way of making the building safer by utility support, control, and construction, organizationally the county will target that, work with the state appropriate agencies, and aim on that. Most specifically to all the residents. Smell gas, get out. Call 911. Stay out until your emergency responders arrive and can provide information, stabilize a leak, or get the utility company into the area.
What has to happen to confirm what happened here? I'm sure you guys have some suspicions. So what is the process involved in terms of
You have to see
going through all that record?
Yeah. So that's exactly it. If looking at 7 months ago, back in March, we had Littonsville. We were looking for all of the possible ignition sources in that building. We'll be doing that the same here. I outlined yesterday that there are gas ovens, cooktops in each unit. So that means there's 9 of those that's in the collapse area, the impact area, that we want to retrieve and check all 9 of those. We also outlined that there's gas dryers in each of the buildings, common laundry room. We need to go to that to get that. Also the gas piping, also anything else. So it's not us focusing on gas. We want to focus on all sources of ignition, all possibilities of what initiated a fire, what initiated a leak, what initiated the explosion. Because that's my point pertaining to conclusions, is we do not want to say, we do not want you to say, because we can't say that this was a gas explosion or a gas leak. Okay, I was very clear here yesterday, there was a gas-fed fire after the explosion occurred and fire rescue arrived. That I witnessed my own eyes, and it took a while for the gas to be controlled. But it is extraordinarily too early for us to say that that was the initial event that created the emergency that we have here.
Chief,
You mentioned that there's still one unit where the residents are just not accounted for at this point. A day later, what goes through your mind thinking about that? Do you get pessimistic? Do you become more concerned?
So as you outlined, we talked about it throughout the day yesterday, the last version at 5 o'clock. 1 unit and 826 remain unaccounted for. Absolutely, we have concern for the resident that was of record there, their family, the people that may have been present at the time of the explosion, roughly 8:40 yesterday morning. There was a significant blast, there was a significant fire situation, and then the collapse. So we take all of that to build a survivability profile that places us into what mode of operations we're working on. The stability of the building is very much a part of that factor and that algorithm as to how we're working on. We know people can survive for days in building collapses. At the same time, relating to a collapse and a fire, as we've experienced with other events in Montgomery County, those are mounted odds that makes it hard for a survivor to survive inside that building.
and it's possible that there was nobody in there.
It is possible that person is just not there. Absolutely. Which is why we have to work until we can identify them, locate somewhere else, or we can locate them here.
Can I ask just one other question?
I'm going to stay here for Bruce for a second, Melanie. I'll get there.
I noticed an ATF agent officer on scene. We shouldn't read anything into that.
Okay.
Do you have anything to indicate that this might be
No. So
other than accidental?
one of the things about this region in the public safety teams is collaboration. That ATF agent has been a part of our operations at Arliss Street, Littonsville Road, and here on Quince Orchard. We are partners with the Baltimore Task Force from Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and our personnel from Montgomery Fire have been at events in Baltimore City, supporting Baltimore City and the ATF in events. That's subject matter experts coming from the federal partners here to help us. Should lead nobody to presume something about investigations.
Chief,
Melanie?
so you mentioned that these buildings were built in 1967.
Yes, ma'am.
They certainly fall within the range where Washington Gas has said they could likely have mercury service regulators.
Correct.
As early as June, they told the Public Service Commission there's 7,000 buildings in their service area in Maryland where they still have those mercury service regulators that have not been replaced. Do you know if this building had those regulators?
So I have looked at a comparable building here. I did not get that detail when I looked at that. I will have that information back for us at 5:30 to be able to answer that definitively, okay?
Chief, the person who's missing from the one unit or unaccounted for, have you had any luck getting in contact with next of kin? And if so, have they said we can't get in touch with this person either?
That information is still being worked on.
Can you say, have you been able to get in touch with immediate loved ones?
Kevin, that information is still being worked on, okay?
And as for this blast compared to what we saw earlier in the year in Silver Spring and in 2016, also in Silver Spring, is there any
Arliss Street was right about after midnight, almost about 1 o'clock in the morning, give or take. Absolutely, any multifamily residential is going to be high density at that time of day. Had Littonsville been 6 months earlier during the pandemic, Littonsville, while it was 10:30 in the morning, Littonsville would have been a higher loss of life possibility because of more people at home, more people in homeschooling at Littonsville. So time of day in multifamily or single family, but any residential building, time of day impacts your occupancy issues. 8:40 in the morning, we had just gotten through the school, the initiation of the elementary schools here. Most folks had already gone on to their day of work, as some of your reporting shows and some of your interviews have identified. So that is a great factor towards a lower people being impacted directly by the explosion, people being in the building at the time the explosion occurred. So let me hit 2 points based upon some of the questions that were asked, and then I'll continue back to your all's communications. Montgomery County Health and Human Services, in conjunction with Montgomery County Public Schools, is working today and will be in the future working with Brown Station Elementary, its administration, and its students in supporting their needs, because they were witnesses to, they were impacted by the operations on the scene yesterday, and will be impacted by the operations throughout the days. One of the plans by the collaboration of the city police and their agencies on the scene is to support Quince Orchard Boulevard's operation to enable the school to have a regular operational period of time for drop off and pickup, and then during the school day shut down Quince Orchard Boulevard to the point we can to allow our operations better access. But again, that road, our goal is to have the road open during drop off and pickup time for the parents, and then reduce the road, limited closures during the periods of school time. And then as the executive outlined, the community meeting is information being planned and developed. More will be available on that at 5 o'clock.
Just a few quick questions. Would it be accurate to say the word missing was used, that there is someone missing?
There is a unit unaccounted for.
But is the word missing accurate or not?
Can I?
If you're unaccounted for.
In the first explosion, we had people who were missing, and photos were put out of those individuals, like, hey, check in with someone.
morning. I think it's too early in the investigation now to be at that point, as our detectives here are working to get additional information about who is accounted for and who is not. We can then look further and go deeper into our investigation, trying to locate them first. They could be on vacation, they could be at work, they could be in many other places, but we want to make sure that we do our best in the investigative strategies we have to try to locate them first before putting it out on who it is, or once we identify who it is, to get that information out there. So our detectives are working in collaboration with the fire rescue to try to get more information and try to locate unaccounted person.
And you're saying you haven't identified
No,
any
we have not.
individual?
No.
Is it one person still or multiple?
It's
Don't know.
we do not know.
And then Washington Gas.
Let me answer one more second on that, Darcy, because I wanted to highlight one of the points we made yesterday. One of the investigative factors related to that is these are condos. The only thing property management knows is one name of owner on record. When we deal with apartment buildings, apartment management knows how many people are on the lease of record inside that unit. While that may be underreported in some places, but you know, 2 adults, mother, husband and wife, and 3 kids, you have a much different data set in an apartment. Being condos, we are working with a point of one, reference of owner, and then have to go there. And there's many sublets present in this type of configuration, which is why we cannot say how many are in that unit.
And Washington Gas put out a statement yesterday afternoon saying that they didn't detect any leaks, and also Navi asked about the regulators. So you don't have an answer on that at this point as far as whether these regulators had been replaced. It sounds like, but what about Washington Gas putting out a statement saying that there were no leaks detected?
Okay, so the regulator part, yes, we talked about. We'll have information back at 5:30 for that. Washington Gas's statement identifies what they detected and what they have information on. We talked yesterday that prior to yesterday's explosion, there were no 911 calls for leaks here. We provided information yesterday that our research back only got us September 22nd as a prior gas leak call to 911 in 826. Outlined yesterday that was in apartment T1, and that was related to a stove. Okay, so that was information at 5:30. Excuse me, 5 o'clock. As outlined yesterday, and I wanted to provide this point of clarity. As outlined yesterday, we did all the 700 and 800 apartments on the even side of the street. Walked those with fire rescue personnel with gas meters. And we checked all of the common spaces in all of those 800 even units this side of the street, and there was no active concerns or leaks detected by fire rescue personnel yesterday, which is why we did that. We wanted to communicate that to the residents, that there was comfort in returning to their buildings last night here in this complex, and if they had a concern when they got to the building, call 911, stay outside, and we will come to assist them.
And 2 quick things. You may have already said this. I apologize. The last person still in the hospital. Did you say adult or kid?
I said an adult male.
Adult male. And then people are being allowed to get some belongings today. If you could address that.
Absolutely. So yesterday afternoon, we did allow folks from 24 and 30 to provide fire rescue personnel. I'm going to say a list of what they needed, where it was in the unit, and the fire rescue personnel went into 24 or 30 and got those belongings out. We have plans today to work that for parts of 28 that are structurally safe, and we are discussing and looking at, based upon, what we're doing with the equipment, what impacts may change to the stability of 24, how we can get the folks for 24 or 30 to obtain more belongings as a longer period of time than what we were able to yesterday. So 24 and 30, yes. 28 plans are being developed, and we hope to get people the ability to get critical items out of 24 so that they can support their long-term, relocation.
What is the stability of 824 connecting to that? Are people going to be able to move back in there, or is that going to be a loss too?
So that's a great question. That's exactly the discussion I had with the engineer this morning. As of now, this morning when we had that discussion, 824 was stable. But 824 is connected to 26. 26 is unstable, and we're trying to stabilize it. As things go, 24 may be more impacted. 24 may become a longer-term displacement issue. Again, that was this morning's structural assessment. We will have to do that day by day as we go. And that's going to be in conjunction with Gaithersburg City Building Code on that long-term occupancy of 24 and 30. Two last questions, whomever. And then Oscar is available for anybody who wishes Spanish information, Spanish briefing. Melanie.
So you mentioned some of the challenges because these are condos, they're privately owned. Are there different rules when it comes to inspections for multifamily dwellings versus condominium buildings? I mean, gas inspections, any other sort of building safety inspections?
I'm not aware of that. We can make sure we have that data point for this evening's activity. We'll get back with you. And again, this is a city, and I'll make sure we get the city folks to come back and help us with that, provide that to you.
I just had a question for the county executive. You know, having been in office and seeing multiple incidents like this, we talked to some residents yesterday who are actually angry. You know, that this keeps happening and feeling somewhat helpless and concerned for their safety. And like 3 of these in the county, and then maybe they have nothing to do with each other, or it's totally separate situations, unique situations. But just as the leader of this county, you know, what do you say to the residents who are concerned about this?
Look, I understand being concerned, but you also have to look at the underlying facts. And so you've got a real explosion where there's a failure of equipment that occurs off of Flower Avenue. That is knowable, that is fixable. You've got somebody working in a building who cuts a pipe. That could happen anywhere. There's no pattern. It's concerning, and that's why we've asked for some changes in the regulations, and hopefully WSSC will see its way through that policy and get it done. And when we know what happened here, then we can determine what else we might need to do. And if there's another thing that comes out of it that's either in our ability to regulate or the state's ability to regulate, we will ask them to do that. But it's, 3 is too many, but it's also not a widespread problem, particularly when you account that these could be totally 3 different causes, absolutely unrelated, and at least one of the 2 has nothing to do with equipment failure. That's just not having a properly marked pipe that somebody who didn't know what they were doing sawed through.
Chief, there's a hole in the ground on the opposite side of the building, and there was looks like a private utility company. They had boxes that said welding on it. Was that work being done prior to the explosion? And are you guys looking if there's any connection to that blast?
Absolutely. So there was work being done to the rear of the 26 building. That was about, like I said, 20 feet off of the curb, and then about 20 feet from the curb to the building itself. Those folks were critical initial witnesses to the events that unfolded here in the building. They provided a lot of details to the investigators as to what they saw, observed, heard. My information yesterday was very clear. They were working on water pipes. These buildings, and for those that have been here a while, these buildings have steam boilers, or boilers that create steam, that provide hot water steam for the building's heat, both the 700 and 800 block. They were working on that type of infrastructure for that building. So it was water pipes in that parking lot excavation, and they were not related to or engaged with any gas utility. They have been clearly a part of our investigation, but they're not a concern at this moment.